The howling winds of Cryon 9 had lulled Marcus into an uneasy sleep when the crash jolted him awake. His habitat's reinforced door shuddered under what sounded like bodies slamming against it, followed by furious hissing and guttural snarls that made his blood run cold. "Back off, Naira." He invited M.E. to his quarters tonight. "In your dreams, Scout." Marcus smiled at M.E. during the maintenance briefing. Marcus sat up in his thermal bed, heart hammering. He recognized those voices, Commander Nira and Scout Lyra, two of the most striking Zilari females in the outpost. Through the viewport beside his door, he caught glimpses of the battle. Navy blue limbs tangled with silvery ones. Blonde hair whipping through the air like golden flames. Tails coiling and striking with hypnotic grace. The Zilari were magnificent humanoid reptilians with smooth, scaled skin that shimmered even in Cryon 9's dim light. But they were also cold-blooded, and in this frozen hell, human body heat was the most precious commodity. Marcus had noticed their lingering glances, the way they'd brush against him during shift changes, how they'd crowd close during briefings. He'd assumed it was just their need for warmth. He'd been spectacularly naive. "He's mine." Nira's voice cracked like a whip as she pinned Lyra against the habitat wall. The commander's navy blue skin gleamed with frost crystals, her athletic frame corded with lean muscle. Her blonde hair, an unusual trait among Zilari, cascaded past her shoulders in waves that seemed to defy the sub-zero temperature. "You had him yesterday." Lyra shot back, her emerald-scaled tail wrapping around Nira's leg and yanking hard. Both warriors tumbled into a snowdrift with a muffled thud, their bodies intertwined in a tangle of limbs and tails. "Besides, I know which scent oils he prefers." Marcus crept toward the door, curiosity overcoming caution. Steam from his overworked heater billowed around his quarters at 30 degrees Celsius. His habitat was a tropical paradise compared to the -50 outside. The warmth was his shield, his fortress, and apparently his curse. His hand hesitated on the door control. Both Zilari were dangerous, trained warriors who could snap him like a twig. But watching them fight over him stirred something primal in his chest, a mixture of terror and undeniable masculine pride. "Ladies?" He called through the intercom, voice cracking slightly. "Maybe we could talk about this?" The fighting stopped instantly. Two pairs of reptilian eyes, Naira's glacial blue and Lyra's forest green, locked onto the viewport where his face appeared. Their expressions shifted from fury to something far more predatory, far more heated. Slowly, deliberately, they both smiled. "Marcus," Naira purred, her breath fogging in the frigid air. "Be a darling and open the door." "We're freezing out here," Lyra added, her voice dripping with honeyed promise. "Don't you want to help us warm up?" Marcus's hand trembled on the door control. Knowing full well that opening it would change everything, Marcus's finger hovered over the door release, his mind racing through every possible outcome. None of them involved him maintaining control of the situation. "This is a terrible idea," he muttered to himself. Even as he pressed the button, the door hissed open, releasing a wave of precious warmth into the frozen night. Both Zilari moved with liquid grace, slipping past him before he could reconsider. The temperature in his quarters dropped 5 degrees instantly, but Marcus barely noticed. His attention was completely captured by the two alien beauties. Now standing in his living space. Up close, they were even more stunning. Naira's navy blue skin had an iridescent quality, catching the amber light of his heater and reflecting it in shifting patterns. Her blonde hair framed sharp, elegant features with high cheekbones and full lips that curved into a knowing smirk. Her body was athletic and powerful, wrapped in a form-fitting thermal suit that left little to imagination. Lyra was slightly smaller but no less captivating, her emerald scales giving her an exotic jewel-like appearance. Her blonde hair was shorter, cut in a practical style that somehow made her look even more alluring. Where Naira moved with commanding confidence, Lyra had a playful, almost feline grace. "Much better," Naira breathed, closing her eyes as the warmth enveloped her. Her scales seemed to brighten, their color deepening from frost-dulled blue to rich sapphire. "I've been dreaming about this all cycle." "You mean you've been dreaming about him," Lyra corrected, moving closer to Marcus with deliberate steps. She stopped just inches away, tilting her head to study him with those mesmerizing green eyes. "Hello, Marcus. Sorry about the noise. Someone doesn't understand the concept of sharing." "Sharing?" Naira's eyes snapped open, blazing with renewed challenge. "He's not a ration pack, Lyra." "No," Lyra agreed, reaching out to trace a finger along Marcus's jawline. Her touch was cool but not unpleasant, sending shivers down his spine for entirely different reasons than the cold. "He's much more valuable than that." Marcus swallowed hard, acutely aware that he was wearing only thermal pants and a thin shirt. "Ladies, I appreciate the visit, but nothing," Naira interrupted, moving to his other side with predatory purpose. She pressed close, her body temperature already rising from his proximity. "Do you know what it's like out there, Marcus? In the cold? Every moment is pain, every breath burns. But here, with you." She placed her palm flat against his chest, right over his racing heart. "Here is paradise." "The warmth is wonderful," Lyra murmured, her hand sliding to his shoulder. "But it's not just that. You're different from the others, gentler, kinder." Her tail coiled loosely around his ankle, the scales surprisingly silky. "When you look at us, you don't see monsters or assets. You see people." Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He was trapped between two alien warriors who could probably bench press his weight, yet he'd never felt more exhilarated. "I do see people. Beautiful people, in fact." Both Zalari stilled. Naira's hand tightened slightly on his chest. "Beautiful?" "He thinks we're beautiful," Lyra whispered. Her voice touched with wonder. "Of course I do," Marcus said, finding courage in their genuine surprise. The atmosphere in Marcus's habitat shifted like a summer storm rolling in. Naira and Lyra exchanged glances over his shoulders, some silent communication passing between them that made Marcus's stomach flutter with nervous anticipation. "Well then," Naira purred, her fingers walking up Marcus's chest with deliberate slowness. "If you think we're both beautiful, perhaps you'd like to help us settle our dispute?" "Dispute?" Marcus's voice came out higher than intended. Lyra pressed closer to his back, her breath warm against his ear thanks to absorbing his heat. "The dispute over which of us you prefer, of course. We can't both claim you tonight." Her tail tightened fractionally around his ankle, possessive and thrilling. "That would be improper." Though not unpleasant, Naira added with a wicked grin that showed the tips of her delicate fangs. "For you, at least?" Marcus's brain struggled to form coherent thoughts with two gorgeous aliens practically draped over him. This isn't standard colony protocol." "Protocol?" Lyra laughed, a melodious sound that made his skin tingle. "Marcus, sweet human, we're on a frozen moon at the edge of explored space. Protocol stopped mattering the day the heating system failed in the Zalari quarters, and we discovered how intoxicating human warmth could be." Naira's hand cupped his face, turning his head gently to meet her hypnotic blue eyes. "Let me demonstrate what I can offer." Before Marcus could respond, she leaned in, her lips brushing against his in a kiss that started cool but quickly warmed. She tasted like frost and something sweet, exotic. Her scales against his skin felt like the finest silk. And when her tongue flicked teasingly against his lower lip, Marcus forgot to breathe. When Naira pulled back, her eyes had darkened to stormy indigo, and her breathing had quickened. "Your warmth is addictive," she whispered. "But your taste, that's something else entirely." My turn, Lyra declared, spinning Marcus around with surprising strength. Her kiss was different, playful, where Nyra's had been commanding, full of barely restrained energy. Her hands tangled in his hair, holding him close as she explored his mouth with obvious delight. When she finally released him, Marcus staggered slightly, dizzy from sensation and oxygen deprivation. "This isn't fair," he managed to gasp out. "You can't just... I mean, there are two of you. Is that a complaint?" Nyra asked, moving behind him now, her arms wrapping around his waist. She pressed against his back, and he could feel her heart beating steadily through the thin fabric of his shirt. "Because you don't sound very upset." "I'm not upset, I'm just..." Marcus paused, searching for the right word. "Overwhelmed." "In a good way, maybe, probably." Lyra traced patterns on his chest through his shirt, her touch feather-light and maddening. "We don't want to overwhelm you, Marcus. We want to warm you, care for you, show you what Zalari females can offer a male worthy of our attention." "Worthy?" Marcus laughed shakily. "I'm just an engineer. I fix heating systems and patch hull breaches." "You're the human who shares his warmth freely," Nyra corrected, her lips brushing against the back of his neck in a way that made him shiver. "Who doesn't charge triple rations for a few minutes by your heater like the others do? Who actually learns our names instead of just calling us the Coldbloods? That's basic decency," Marcus protested weakly. "That's why we want you," Lyra said simply, her green eyes earnest beneath the playfulness. The standoff lasted perhaps 3 heartbeats before Marcus made a decision that would either be brilliant or catastrophic. Probably both. What if... He took a deep breath, feeling both Zalari tense with anticipation. What if you didn't have to compete? What if you both stayed? The silence was deafening. Then Nyra laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine surprise and delight. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting, engineer?" "I'm suggesting," Marcus said, finding confidence in their obvious interest, "that fighting in sub-zero temperatures is dangerous. That my habitat has a perfectly functional thermal bed rated for 3 occupants, and that maybe, just maybe, sharing warmth doesn't have to be a zero-sum game." Lyra's tail unwound from his ankle, only to coil around his thigh in a distinctly more intimate position. A human who understands resource optimization. How attractive. "Plus," Marcus continued, emboldened by the heat building between them, "you're both incredible. Why should I choose when I'm clearly the luckiest human in the colony either way?" Nyra spun him around again. Apparently they both enjoyed keeping him off balance and studied his face with those penetrating blue eyes. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because her expression softened into something almost tender. "You really mean that? You're not just saying what you think we want to hear?" "I never learned to lie convincingly," Marcus admitted. "Engineer brain. Everything's too literal." "Then let me be literal," Nyra said, her hands sliding to his shoulders. "I want you. I've wanted you since the day you fixed my quarters heating at 0300 without complaint. I want to share your warmth, your bed, your time. And apparently..." She glanced at Lyra with a mixture of resignation and amusement. "I want to share you with this irritating, beautiful, infuriating scout." Lyra beamed. "That might be the nicest thing you've ever said about me, Commander. Don't get used to it. Too late." Lyra turned to Marcus, her expression growing serious despite the playful words. "I want this too. Not just the warmth, though your heat is like a drug, but you. The way you look at us like we're miracles instead of military assets. The way you remember that I prefer sweet rations and Nyra likes the savory ones. The way you're standing here, terrified and aroused and honest about all of it." Marcus felt his face flush. "Is the aroused part that obvious?" "Extremely," both Zalari said in unison, then laughed at his expression. "But that's good. Nira assured him, her hands working at the fastenings of her thermal suit. Because we're fairly aroused ourselves. The warmth is having a very stimulating effect on our metabolisms. Lyra was already shrugging out of her own suit, revealing smooth emerald scales that seemed to glow in the amber light. When we warm up, everything intensifies. Sensation, desire, need. She stepped closer, now wearing only a minimal undergarment that left little to imagination. Want to find out just how warm we can get? Marcus's mouth went dry. I think my heater might not be adequate for what's about to happen. Good thing you're a renewable heat source, Nira said, stepping out of her suit completely. Her navy blue body was a masterpiece of alien beauty, familiar enough to be attractive, different enough to be exotic. The morning light of Crayon 9, a pale, distant glow from the system's star filtered through the habitat's frosted viewport, finding three bodies tangled together beneath thermal blankets. Marcus woke slowly, immediately aware of the warm weight on either side of him. Nayra's navy blue arm draped across his chest, her head resting on his shoulder. Her blonde hair tickled his neck with each breath. On his other side, Lyra had curled into him completely, her emerald tail wrapped possessively around his leg, her face pressed against his ribs. Both Silari were radiating heat now, their cold-blooded systems fully charged from a night of shared warmth and intimacy. The night had been educational. Marcus had discovered that Zilari females were playful, passionate, and surprisingly coordinated when they stopped competing and started cooperating. The rivalry had melted into something far more harmonious, a dance where each knew instinctively when to lead and when to follow. He'd learned that Nira liked to be in control but melted at gentle touches, while Lyra was mischievous and responsive to playful challenges. Together, they'd been overwhelming in the best possible way. You're thinking very loudly, Nira murmured without opening her eyes. It's disturbing my post-warmth languor. Sorry, Marcus whispered. Not wanting to wake Lyra, just processing. Process quieter. But Nira smiled, tilting her face up to brush a kiss against his jaw. Though I suppose some thinking is acceptable. That was quite a night. It really was, Marcus agreed, marveling at how natural this felt. Yesterday, he'd been a lonely engineer. Today, he was apparently in a relationship with two alien warriors. So, what happens now? Now? Lyra stirred, her green eyes blinking open sleepily. Now you're stuck with us. We've decided. Decided what? That you're ours, Nira said matter-of-factly, propping herself up on one elbow to look at him properly. And we're yours. It's the only logical solution. The fighting was fun, Lyra admitted, stretching like a cat and deliberately pressing closer to Marcus. But this is better. Much better. Marcus felt a surge of warmth that had nothing to do with body temperature. Just like that. You two were ready to tear each other apart last night. That was before, Nira said dismissively. Before we realized that sharing one exceptional human is far superior to fighting over him. Before we discovered how well we work together when we're not competing. Her expression turned sly. You certainly seem to appreciate our cooperation. Marcus's face heated. I'm not complaining about the arrangement. Just surprised how quickly you adapted. Zilari are practical, Lyra explained, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his chest. We compete for resources when they're scarce, but cooperate when it benefits the group. And you, Marcus, are a resource worth sharing. She grinned at his expression. Also, you're not just a resource. You're sweet, generous, and surprisingly inventive when properly motivated. Plus, Nira added, her tail coiling around his other leg in a mirror of Lyra's position. This arrangement has strategic advantages. We can rotate schedules to ensure you're never lonely. Combine our off shifts to maximize time together. and present a united front against any other Zelari females who might get ideas about your availability. Other females? Marcus's voice squeaked slightly. Oh yes, Lyra said with wicked amusement. Once word spreads that the kind engineer has taken partners, you're going to be very popular. But don't worry, we're excellent at defending what's ours. Terrifying, Marcus muttered, but he was smiling. So I'm part of a triad now? You are, Nira confirmed. If you consent, of course. We may have claimed you, but you have to claim us back. That's how these arrangements work. Marcus looked between them, Nira with her commanding presence and hidden softness, Lyra with her playful spirit and fierce loyalty. Two gorgeous, deadly, affectionate aliens who had quite literally fought over him and then decided he was worth more together than apart. Yes, he said firmly. I consent. I claim you both. Excellent, Lyra purred. Then let's seal it properly. What followed was a long, lazy morning of warmth, affection, and careful exploration as they learned each other's preferences and boundaries. By the time the three of them finally emerged for their duty shifts, Marcus to engineering, Nira to command, Lyra to reconnaissance, the entire outpost knew something had changed. The way they moved together spoke volumes. The protective positions Nira and Lyra took flanking Marcus at the mess hall, the casual touches they exchanged, the absolute contentment radiating from all three of them despite Cryon 9's brutal cold. Word spread quickly through the Zelari population. The warm human engineer was claimed. Two of their finest warriors had formed a triad with him, and by the possessive way they watched him, challenging that arrangement would be unwise. For Marcus, the frozen moon had suddenly become the warmest place in the galaxy. He'd come to Cryon 9 expecting isolation and cold. Instead, he'd found passion, partnership, and a love that burned hot enough to melt glaciers. That night and every night after, three bodies would tangle together in thermal bliss, a human and two Zelari, generating enough heat to turn the coldest outpost into the galaxy's hottest secret. And if their nightly activities kept the surrounding habitats considerably warmer than regulations intended, well, no one was complaining. The ice moon of Cryon 9 remained frozen and inhospitable. But in one small habitat, surrounded by alien beauty and wrapped in navy blue and emerald scales, Marcus had found paradise, and he was never letting it go. The end.